Hello, I'm going to make a recording of this portion of the lecture, the Blender tutorial part, because I don't know if we're going to be able to get my computer working in tomorrow's lecture. So here is the offline version of this recording, of this part of the lecture. So this is Blender. It's a 3D modeling basically suite. It's an application that has tons of functionality and features for basically for doing all kinds of 3D scenes, building rendered scenes that could be used in movies or film or all sorts of stuff. There's 98% of the features in this app you're not going to need to know or use for this class. The reason we're learning the 2% is because this is going to make it a lot easier for you to edit and work with the meshes that you will be working with for your final project. So a basic facility and understanding of modeling and with Blender is what we want to get to. So we're going to go over some basic modeling commands and just the user interface of Blender, so people are not super confused. The first thing we're looking at here is basically the 3D scene. Okay, and this is the default cube that comes up when you first open up Blender. I'm going to hold down my middle mouse button and click and then drag, and you can see I can rotate the scene, which shows me this cube from different angles. I can also use the mouse wheel to zoom in and out, and then right-clicking gives me a menu of some stuff I can do, and then left-clicking selects objects in the scene. So this object up here in the front is a camera. This isn't really relevant, super relevant, but could be. Well, let me table that. This is an object, and over here on the right, you can see there's this thing called the scene collection, and these are all the objects that exist in the scene. Okay, this up here is a light. Okay, that well, it's a light that shines light on whatever's in the scene, basically. What you can do here is one thing you can do, for example, is add new objects. So if I click add, and this time I'll add like say a circle. Okay, now you can see there's a circle here on the right, but we're not seeing it. I'm going to click on this eyeball icon here to hide the cube, and now you can see the circle. All right. So I'm going to use the X key to delete the circle. X is delete. Okay. And we'll just go back to having the cube, and I'm going to show it again by clicking on the eye icon. So the main thing that you're going to be doing with objects in Blender is essentially modeling. Okay. So for your final project, which is going to be a 3D scene, you're going to get a lot of the models from downloading from the internet, from TurboSquid or whatever, but you're still going to probably need to model things like the overall environment, the floors and the walls of the scene, that kind of thing. So this is why you need to have a basic idea of how to do that kind of thing. So to do that, what I'm going to give you a sense of how to do something like that, I'm going to model basically like the interior of a house with some rooms. Okay, so that's how this is going to be. So the first thing I'm going to do is click on this cube and hit the tab key. What tab does is go into edit mode. Tab again goes out of edit mode. You can tell you're in edit mode because well, because it looks like this, I guess. There's other, oh, you up here in the upper left, it'll tell you edit mode. See up here in the upper left, it says edit mode or object mode. when you're in edit mode, like if there was another object here in the scene, it would be deactivated, and the only object that you'd be, I guess editing is this one that you have selected, this cube. And what edit mode allows you to do, is that it allows you to move vertices around and also faces and edges, but we'll get to that. Now I've distorted my cube a lot in a way that I don't like, so I'm going to click to finish the operation, the move operation that I just did with my mouse, and I'm going to hit good old Control Z to undo, okay? That's always a good thing to be able to think about. Click on something. Oh, by the way, the move operation, which I didn't tell you what I did on the keyboard here, I hit the G key. G means go. So rotating around again with the middle mouse button, clicking on a vertex and hitting the G key tells Blender to go somewhere with that vertex. And it doesn't matter where the mouse is, the vertex will track the movement of the mouse. You can see that when I hit G, the mouse was over somewhere else, right? And Blender just kind of follows the mouse like that. You can see that. Okay, let's Control Z, back to the regular cube. Okay. So yes, it's a mesh. It's made up of vertices, edges, which are the lines connecting vertices, and faces, which are obviously the faces. Right now, the way that the mesh, the edit mode, there's three sub modes inside edit mode. There's vertex select, edge select, and then face select. If you have vertex select selected, then that means that you can do what I just did. By the way, what I did there is hit escape before completing that action, which sets it back to the beginning. All right, if I go to edge select, now I can select entire edges and use the G key to move them around. See, I'm doing that. Okay, Control Z to undo. And face select mode, interestingly, you can't see it, but there used to be a little dot in the center of each face so you could see where the face is. I guess they got rid of that in this version of Blender, but at any rate, you can select faces when you're the whole entire face when you're in face select mode. And then you can hit the G key and move it around, okay? All right. So that's yeah, that's really cool and important stuff. Let's go over here to the upper right of the screen. These are some different ways to look at this object. So if you click on this thing, this is viewport shading. This gives you a wireframe view of the object. And let's delete the cube actually, and we'll add a more complicated object so you can see a little bit more what that would look like. So I'm going to exit from edit mode by hitting tab again, hit X to delete, and I'm going to add a mesh, and the monkey was a primitive that's added into Blender because it's a helpful test shape that has a lot of complex geometry, okay? So if you look at this monkey head here, you can see that it has a lot of different quads, right? It's got a lot of different vertices. Let's edit it. Okay, there they all are. If you want to select all the vertices in an object or all the edges or all the faces, you hit the A key. That selects everything. Hitting A, I think you have to hit A twice quickly to deselect everything. And you can also drag to select parts of the mesh. You can see that the selected part of the mesh is kind of lit up. That's helpful, right? But in general, it's kind of hard to, if you wanted to maybe just chop off back of the head or something, it would be kind of hard to do it with dragging around with the middle mouse button, right? So Blender has, and there's ways to do that if you don't have a number pad on your keyboard. I think it's like view. Here we go. View and then viewpoint. Top, bottom, front, back, right, left. Okay. So, but I'm going to use the number pad. So when I hit 1, oops, my mouse has to be over the viewport for it to work. When I hit 1, it's showing me the front of the mesh. Let's go out of wireframe mode and back into viewport shading mode to see the monkey a little better. This is the front of the monkey's face. And also notice that the perspective got a little weird when I hit 1. That's because it goes into orthographic perspective. We're not going to cover that for a few classes yet, but you can think of it as like sort of an architectural, like drafting view that makes everything super laid out flat. Okay, just think of it as a super flat view. Anyway, in this view, with viewport shading, I can do something like select this, and then if you turn to the side, you can see I selected all the faces vertices that were visible from the front. If I hit 3 to look at it from the side, AA to deselect everything, and then drag down like this, I'll get the left side of the monkey's head, right? Let's do that again. AA to deselect everything. Now I'll go into this wireframe mode again, okay? If I drag down the middle again, now I've selected everything. That is because when I'm in wireframe mode, I can select the things that are behind, right? Whereas when I'm in viewport shaded mode, I can only select what's visible. I don't know. I hope that made sense, okay? So front, side, the number 7 is top, okay? And then I think we had before, if you remember, like we had looked at this camera. Let's get out of this view and deselect, or we'll get out of edit mode. You see this camera over here? That's the camera. If I hit 5, oh, not 5. What is it? Oh, 0. 0 positions the viewpoint right where the camera is. This would show you what would happen if I were to render this as an image. You would see this with this monkey face being lit by that light, okay? You're not going to really be rendering anything in this class. That's not what it's about. You're going to be using this app to like edit the 3D models that you will then render yourself in your own app, but it's useful to know, okay? Okay, so that's Suzanne, the monkey head. That's her name. And let me show you some other things. Let's see. This is the material preview. I'll get into materials in a little bit, but these progressively show you the view in a more realistic way, like the way it would look when it was rendered. That's what these 4 different options are. When you're modeling, you're primarily going to be in the solid view or the wireframe view, okay? These 2. So getting back to, let's go back to the cube, actually. So let's delete Suzanne, and we'll add a cube. Okay, back to this. We'll go to here, which is the front view, right? And we'll hit Tab to edit the cube. Now you can see why it's useful to be able to look at this object from directly the front or directly the side. It means that if I do something like grab just this, these 2 vertices, right? And I go up like this, I've kind of uniformly changed the shape of this object in a kind of predictable way. I've given it a little, angle that goes up to the right, but it's not like weirdly shaped or distorted because I made that edit while it was looking straight dead on from the front. So when you are working with a 3D model, really think in terms of, you probably don't want to be making a whole lot of modeling edits when you're in this like 3D view. This is more for like checking it out to see what it looks like, right? You want to be making most of your edits in front, side, or top view, which will go all the same because it's a cube. Speaking of that, another thing you can do is, well, there's this is blah, blah, blah. These are like presets, basically. What I want to show you here is that you can modify the like user interface so there's more than one window, and that can really be important. So if I say vertical split and I bring this over here, now I've got these two windows, right? And then if I come up here and I say horizontal split and I bring this down, and I'm right clicking in this little zone between the, this little gutter in between the two menus. Click there, I say another horizontal split, I bring this down. Now I've got 4 different windows into the same scene. And what I can do is make like one of them front, one of them right, one of them top, and one of them from the side. And the nice thing about doing that is that if I decide I want to edit, okay, let's say I want to drag the right side out to the right, I do that and I can see it happening on from all the angles here, okay? All right, so let's talk about some other things that we could do besides moving these vertices, okay? The other thing that we can do here is we can rotate. So hit R to rotate, and that will essentially take whatever you have selected, whether it's 2 vertices, right? And rotate them around their sort of center of gravity. In this case, it's rotating them around the point in between the sort of the center of this face that I have selected, right? The rotation center is actually configurable. Can't really see it because of the way I have these windows set up, but it's like, it's here. The transform pivot point, right now I have a median. You can set it to the 3D cursor, which is this weird looking thing right here in the middle. So if you want an arbitrary point to be the center of your rotation, you change the location of the cursor. Otherwise, you can choose one of these other options for the rotational center, okay? So yeah, the rotation center. Then we have, I won't get into the snapping or the proportional edit right away here, but we do need to know about rotating for sure, and then also scaling. So let's undo. If you're scaling something, that's S, and that means to make it smaller or bigger, okay, as you might think. So yeah, scaling, rotating. G is actually translate. I don't know why they didn't use the letter T, but they didn't. But the correct term for that is translating. Scaling, rotating, and translating basically get you a lot. That's like 90% of what you're going to need to know for what you're going to do. The main other thing that you are probably going to need to do is extrude, okay? What extrude does is, if it's like this, you can best describe it as like, if you imagine like you have a face selected, and I guess say that face is a little, I don't know, plant, tree trunk or something. you want to make it grow in a certain direction. So, but you want it to leave, I'm just going to show you. This is extruding. Hold on. This is extruding. No. This is extruding. So I've pulled out the vertex. I pulled the face out, and also when I pulled it out, it stayed connected at the vertices where I pulled that out from. That was terribly described, but I think you can visually see what I'm talking about here. One thing that's very important to understand about extruding is when you extrude, okay, the face is gone from where you originally dragged it from. What does that mean? So if you look at this box the way it is now, right? I have basically these four. If you look at these four vertices that are in the middle where I extruded from, these don't have a face connecting them. I could add one, but if you're extruding, just the normal extrusion operation leaves this empty. And that's very important because what you basically use extrude for is to sort of progressively make a shape bigger. Okay? And let me show you what I mean by that. So let's say going back to the beginning, I'm going to make like a sort of a floor plan for a house. So let's do it this way. We will first, let's let's do it this way. We'll take this is the top view. So I'm going to say G to go, and I'm going to hit the X, and I hit X. And when I hit X, what that is telling it to like go somewhere, like translate, but along the X axis. And when I hit X, you see that the X axis was like highlighted. Now, when I drag my mouse, it'll only move along the X axis, right? Then I'll select this side, but this time I'll extrude, right? So I'll extrude along the X, and it's automatically constrained when I extrude, okay? Okay, and then I'll extrude again, okay? You can see that the shape that I'm sort of building looks like that, right? So looking at the top view again, let me select all of these vertices up at the top, and I'm gonna hit G to translate, and Y to go along the Y-axis, okay? And then I'm gonna select these here, and I'm gonna hit G and go along the Y-axis again. Okay, so I've made sort of a large rectangular, let's say, room with these two extra sort of portals on the side. Why did I make the portals? I made the portals because what I'm going to do is select them and say extrude to create a hallway going out from the room. Okay? And I'll select this one here and hit extrude to make another hallway coming out. Okay? So kind of what we're doing here. We're just going to, you can do a lot by just extruding. So let's extrude again and make another room. Okay, select these two over here, extrude out to make another room. Hit these two, hit E to extrude out here. And we're already building like this sort of floor plan of a house, right? Yeah, and then when I'm done, I hit Tab to exit the edit mode, and now I've created this sort of complex shape that looks like that. And that's like the floor plan that I was telling you about. Okay, I'm gonna pause recording and then come back to this in a minute. Pause recording, that's. All right, so I'm back. I wrote down a list of other things that I want to talk about. Let me, first of all, yeah, I'm going to join these areas. I don't really need the front and side views. What matters here really is this top view. Let me, what I'll even do here is switch places. So let's join these areas as well. And then we'll just have one vertical split like this. So we'll have the top view on this side. And here we'll have the little this thing. Something I should have mentioned before, in addition to zooming in and out with the mouse wheel, I can sort of reposition the view along the plane like I'm doing right now here on the left side by holding down Shift and dragging with the middle mouse button pressed. For all these middle mouse button things, there's an equivalent for if you're using a laptop. You'll have to Google it. There's equivalent ways to do all these things with a laptop. You don't have to you're not just like lost. It is easier with a full keyboard, mouse, and a number pad, but you can still do everything with a laptop. Okay, so let's talk about edge loops. And I always forget. First of all, we got to edit this shape here. Okay. I think it's Control R. Yes. So when you do Control R, what Blender does is it looks at where your mouse is in the mesh, and it looks for a essentially like a box that it can bisect. So if you see, like if my mouse is down here, it says like let's create it. This is called an edge loop. Let's create an edge loop around this box in the middle. And if I click to confirm, then it does it, but I'm still in like it created it, but now I'm in, I don't know, step B of the process, I guess, because now I decide where I want the edge loop to be. Say I decide I want it to be here, right? And then I can hold down Control R, hit click to decide I'm going to have the edge loop, and then move that there, right? And now going back over here to the left side, I can select these two and extrude. So you see I created a little portal area where it didn't exist before by using Control R to make these edge loops. The reason that it's a two-step process with Control R is you can make more than one edge loop at once. So by using the mouse wheel, I can choose how many edge loops I want to make. I usually only ever do like one or two, but I mean, depends if you wanted to, depends on what you're modeling, I guess. But you can click this. Interestingly, I think at this point, if I hit S to scale, yeah, it's interesting, right? But then I hit X, it scales it along the X axis, right? And in general, that's sort of how like these things work. So you hit G to translate, S or R to scale or rotate, and then you can hit an axis, like why am I in edge select mode? Then you can hit you can hit a key for an axis to scale, rotate, or go along that axis. So if I hit rotate right now, this rotation is a bit cattywampus, but if I want to just rotate around the X axis, I hit X, and now it's rotating in a sensible way. I don't know if I really want my room to be shaped that way, but the point is I had to escape to stop doing that, but like that's something you can do. All right. So now let's see, what are the, okay, so that was edge loops. Let's talk about insets. So if I select these vertices over here and I hit I to inset, I don't know if you can see what it did there. It's a little bit like extruding, but inside the face. So it kind of made this little area and connected like a little picture frame almost. That's what inset does. I will also say that this is a good opportunity for me to show you something else. So as you can see, when I rotate here on the right side, it's kind of rotating around the entire shape. But when I zoomed in, I tried to zoom into here and rotate, and now it kind of doesn't work, right? I want to rotate just around these selected vertices, right? To do that, it's called frame selected, which is the period key on the number pad. So if you hit that, it'll zoom in on whatever's selected and then rotate around that, which is one of the most useful things in this whole entire app, because I mean, I'm always doing this. Center on that vertex and then rotate around it, because I'm always editing part of the mesh and I want to be able to just see that and rotate around it and look at it. So anyway, let me select everything, hit that to rotate around everything, hit the period key on the number pad. Okay, so that's frame selected. Let me also point out that you can, in addition to modifying these vertices and stuff, visually you can do it by typing stuff in. So I think if you click on this doodad here, and then you select, let's say, oops, I want to do this from the top. Let's go into solid mode for a second. I want to select just one vertex. I click on that to select one vertex. I mean, I guess I could have done this in the other window, right? Here's that vertex, okay? And you can see it's telling me where it is in meters for some reason. I don't know what the units really matter, but X, Y, and Z, location of this vertex, essentially, right? Global and local, the reason they're the same is because, let me get out of edit mode for a second. This entire object has a location. If I go along the x-axis for a second on this object, right, I move it, and then I go back to editing this mesh. Let me exit from the solid mode so you can see the wireframe again. Okay. Now this vertex has a different global location than the local location. That's because I moved the entire object. It's important to realize that and know if you're, especially if you're going to type in locations here, right, to know if you're in object mode or edit mode. And to know, and blah, 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 etc. You're, in most cases, because you're going to be editing one like mesh at a time and then loading them into your 3D scene, you should probably, all of your objects probably should just be at the origin, because the positioning within the scene will be done by your code that you're writing. But I'm showing it to you anyway so you can understand it. do rotation here. As well, scaling. So anything that you can do with the G, S, and R keys, you can do here. See, if I use the G key in the object mode, it's just changing this transform. If I use the R key here in object mode, it's just changing this rotation, right? So everything is, well, yeah, has numbers associated with it. That shouldn't be too surprising. Okay, let's see, what else are we going to talk about? Typing stuff in. This doodad up here is helpful. So you remember I had been talking about hitting the keys on the number pad. You can also just click on this. If you want to see it from the top, click on the Z. The bottom, click on -Z. So, I mean, there's another way to do it if you're on a laptop. This shows it from the camera perspective. We had talked about that. Click again to go off camera perspective. This is this perspective versus orthographic. Orthographic is really going to confuse you if you well, I don't know, maybe it won't. Orthographic is like I said, like an architectural rendering. It's not realistic, it's not what it looks like in real life, but it's sort of a pictorial description. I don't know. Parallel lines remain parallel in orthographic perspective. You're going to learn about the math of it in a later class. What else? Okay, I was going to talk about, I had mentioned that there was a camera. What I forgot to mention is that you can move the camera, and then obviously if you move and rotate the camera, you would be seeing the scene from a different location if you go to the camera view. This will be important in a moment, but again, like I said, the reason the camera is going to be important for you is not because you can render this scene like a 3D rendering. It's going to be important so you can test what the scene would look like after putting it into your like game or project. Oh, I gave it away. It's a game. So let me think here. Moving the camera. 3D. Oh, the 3D cursor. I had mentioned this before. This is the 3D cursor, right? This menu over here, by the way, this is other way you can move, rotate, and scale with these menu items here on the left. This stuff isn't important. The nice thing about this, the cursor is it's useful for one specific use case. And let me show you what that is. I mean, it's useful for a lot of things, but I use it for this one specific use case. Let's exit. Oh, we are in object mode already. Okay. We're in object mode. Let's make another object. We will add and by the way, these are the other objects. These are the other objects you can make. Plane can be pretty useful. I'm going to make a cylinder. Okay. And I'm going to take it along the x-axis here, so it's over here, right? Now the cylinder's over here. Let's say I wanted to rotate this object around this object. The way that I can do that is I always forget what this is. It is snap cursor to selected. Okay, so you see the 3D cursor moved over to the selected object. So now if I click on this object and I change the rotational center to be the 3D cursor, and then I rotate over here in this view, I am now rotating around that object because I put the 3D cursor on that object. So that's one of the sort of situations where you might need to use the 3D cursor. So yeah, there's cylinders. We've got, let me put it back to the, you can see it view. There we go. We got cylinders. We got, let me hide. cube. It's not really a cube anymore. We can double click floor plan. Let's hide that. We'll hide the cylinder. So if I add a plane, oh, by the way, the 3D cursor is where new things get added. Let's move the 3D cursor back to the origin. Snap cursor to world origin. X to delete the plane. Let's start over. We'll make a new plane. Add a plane. The plane is helpful because it's like just a super simple shape. You can extrude, right? If I hit, right now, I'm extruding along, am I extruding along Z? Yes, I was extruding along Z. One thing about extruding, by the way, is if you, let's say I select these 4 things and I hit extrude, it's going to extrude along the normal, but I think I can hit Z, yes, and then I can not extrude along that. I think I can even hit R, and if this is rotational extrusion. Yeah. One thing you want to be careful with extruding, by the way, and this can really be a mess, is let's say you just go like this and you say, I'm going to extrude. And you're like, actually, never mind. Or, what's it? No, you hit extrude and you go like this and you're like, you hit escape to cancel that motion. You've still duplicated these vertices. Okay, that's really a problem. Like if I click on this, you can see that there's 2 vertices in the same spot. This can really be a problem with having like messy meshes. Like if you do a lot of operations and sort of cancel them and you don't cancel them right, and you get these like meshes that are sort of messed up. And by messed up, what I mean is where you have like 2 vertices in the same spot. You can do a thing. I think it's like mesh cleanup. Merge by distance. Yes, there we go. Now we only have 1 vertex there. Okay. Okay. Let's see what else. We got object types. Oh, I was going to show the other object types. Cylinders, cones, torus. Well, I mean, you know what these things are. This is a sphere. 2 different kinds of spheres. An icosphere looks like that. You know, whatever. You can explore those, I guess. Okay, so I think we covered everything for basic modeling. I'm going to show you one like more advanced thing that has to do with the camera. And I'm going to pause the recording. I don't know why I need to tell you that, but I'm going to do that. Okay. Okay, so let's oh, by the way, you know, this is an interesting thing that I just did. So remember when I was adding these objects, I added a sphere and I added this, or I add some other things. I was in edit mode when I was adding them. That means they're actually part of the same object, right? You have the same add menu in object mode or edit mode. If you're in object mode and you add something, it's a different object. But if you're in edit mode, it adds that shape to your mesh. Okay. I want to be in edit mode for this and delete these vertices. I should probably talk about deleting. You can delete different things. Like let's say that I wanted to delete this face and leave everything else. I could say delete just the faces, right? And you can see that I can see through it now. This would delete, if I do, I don't know, dissolve vertices, I think is like, tries to connect. Yeah, see, it connected it into this larger shape, right? If you want only delete edges and faces, you can do that. Only edges and faces. So there's a lot of choices here. Anyway, let's delete all the vertices, which deletes oops, didn't get everything because I not in wireframe mode. Okay. Let's go back to here. Okay. So let's get our floor plan back. We don't need this plan anymore, actually. Let's delete it. Go back to our floor plan. I also don't need this cylinder. Let's get rid of this. So what I want to do here is I want to make the camera fly through this this room. And this is essentially what you're going to be doing in your final project. You're going to have an animated scene where the camera moves through a space, okay? That's more or less, there's more to it, but that, well, I mean, there's a little more to it, but that's kind of the main thing. In order to do that, okay, you're going to, well, one way to do it, you can do it, you don't have to do it this way, but what I'm going to do is make a Bezier curve in Blender, and then I will give you a way to export the Bezier curve. I think I wrote a script in Blender to do it. I can't remember anymore, but you can export essentially the Bezier curve from Blender. The curve is going to describe like the motion of the camera through the scene, okay? So let's add the curve first. And I'm going to do that over on this side. So curves are a little, by the way, the curve is not going to be in your scene in the same way that the mesh is. OpenGL doesn't draw curves, right? The curve is going to be saved out in a file format that you're going to be able to read, and then you'll implement an animation that goes through that curve, okay? Okay, so you can add a curve. Bezier curve is the simplest, okay? And I was in object mode, which is right. Okay, the Bezier curve here starts a bit small. You can see that it's there. Okay, let's get rid of this stuff. I don't need this. I don't know how to get it to go back in here. Weird. So anyway, here's the curve, right? And I can move it around like any object. Let's put this one in wireframe mode so you can see what's happening over here as well. Okay, that's going to be in wireframe mode so you can see the location of the curve. So there's the curve, and you can see, looking at it from different viewpoints, the curve is sort of right in the middle of the room, okay? And it's sort of coming from this hallway, and it's going to go in here. And I'm going to make the camera path go sort of like around this section of the hallway and then like through here, okay? So the way I'm going to do that actually is by clicking Edit, and Bezier curves can be edited just like meshes. And the way you edit them is, and if you've ever used Photoshop, you've seen these before. These are these handles. So you click on this handle, and it's the same commands. G to move something, okay. R to rotate. I would have, oops, I want to select all three of these and hit R. Oh, crud. That's what I need to do. Change this rotational center back to bounding box center. That's why the rotation was weird. So then I rotate, you can see I can rotate this, right? And then the other thing you can do with a curve is extrude just like you can with the mesh. So extruding kind of just extends the curve. So then I can like rotate, extrude again, rotate this curve, extrude, rotate. You can see I'm sort of building up this camera path by just continually extruding and rotating. Okay, so the camera's going to go in here and then head this way. All right, so if you can look at this, you can see that the camera path moves in the room this way, goes through here, whatever, comes through here and out and stops here, okay? That's the camera path. But we want to make the camera actually follow that path. And what we're gonna, the way we do that is we're gonna select the camera and we're gonna add something called an object constraint. And this is super specific to like something you would do if you were making an animated scene in a film. We're not gonna get into all that. There's a million things here. This is just to help you like test out and check out your scene to make sure it looks okay. So what you're going to be doing is using the follow path constraint. Oh, you know what I need to do before setting up the follow path constraint is I need to reset all the transforms on the camera. So the camera has to be at 0, 0, 0 with no rotation. The reason I'm doing that is that when I start following the path, I want it to be completely neutral with respect to the path. So adding the object constraint again, follow path, and I'm going to choose this Bezier curve. And now you can see the camera is clamped to this curve, and then this offset factor gets it to move along the curve, okay? The only problem is it's like facing down, which isn't what you want. You can choose follow curve, and that still doesn't really give you what you want. It's rotating now with the curve, but it's facing the wrong way. So this is why you're going to need to do this probably. It looks like we're going to be going the other direction. It's fine. Or well, you know what? No, we'll go from. No, yeah, it's going to go from minus 100 at the beginning. Minus 100 is the start of the path. Okay. So let's rotate this the other way. There. Ooh, actually, see this little thing right here? That's the top of the camera, the arrow. So I think what we want to do is rotate along X by 90 and rotate along Y by 180. That's I think what we want, right? Nope. Z 180. There, that's right. So now we're looking ahead along the path. We can change this offset value and it will scoot along the path. Okay, and then what we will do, we're gonna do a tiny bit of animation. So we're gonna start at minus 100 here. And this is down here is like a little animation keyframing interface for making little animations. So we're only going to animate one property, and that is this offset. So we're going to right click here and say insert keyframe. Okay, and you can see there's a little diamond. This is getting into some advanced stuff, which we'll talk about more with animation. But basically what a keyframe means is like, we've decided where the thing is going to be at the keyframe, and then sometime in the future, we're going to decide where it would be in the future, and there'll be another keyframe. And then in between, the animation framework sort of fills in the gaps. So what we're going to do is move this playhead of the animation up to, let's say we'll do 200 frames, right? Or we'll do 250 frames because it already set that for me. This can be anything you want, right? So 250 frames, we change the offset to 0, and we do insert keyframe again. And if I did this right, then what will happen is when I hit play, the animation will move, okay? The camera will move forward through the scene, basically. Okay. So you've got a little animation of the camera moving through this set of rooms that we created with extruding and other stuff. And now we want to see what it's going to look like. So one problem with this scene is that we only have one light, and the light is outside the room. So it is pitch black inside that room. Let's fix that, because we need light to see. That's basic physics. Let's move this light in here. And I think it's like in the corner, you know? And then we'll add like a couple more lights. Or I think we can use duplicate. Yeah, Shift D to duplicate this light. Oops, I moved it too far. I want it in here. Shift D to duplicate the light again. We'll put a light over here. We'll put a light in the hallway, and we'll put a light over here. Let's check over here on our 3D version of the scene. And yeah, look, those are all the lights. Now, since I'm in wireframe version, it shouldn't matter that much. This is really bugging me that I can't make that go back in here. I forget how to hide and show this. Menu. Oh, there. Okay. Yeah, so if we look at this, blah, blah, and then we go from the camera point of view, now I'm inside the room, right? But it still doesn't look that realistic. If I click into the rendered view, now it's going to look almost like a real room. And when I hit play, you're going to see kind of what this camera sees when it's zipping through this room. That's kind of the thing. That's kind of it. I'll zoom in a little so the camera is more realistic. One thing I like to do with the camera, because it's really hard for me to like visually look at this and figure out what the camera actually sees. So like there's a thing called vignetting. Let me go. Camera. I think it's here. Viewport display, maybe. No, it's not vignetting. It's pass pursuit. Whatever that means. I think if this is 0, or no, 100. Yeah. So if you set some French word, pass partout. If you set this to 1, then if you're in camera view, then everything that's not camera doesn't actually see is invisible. And so we'll go back to the beginning of the animation, click play, and now you can see what the camera sees as it is moving through the scene. And if you feel like the movement is a little too abrupt, and that's the reason why I think it's important to like test this out in Blender, okay? Is if you think the camera movement isn't to your liking, you can adjust it even just while you're sort of watching the animation. And that can help you to really sort of, maybe you want to make this curve a little smoother. That first turn is a little weird. then this is a little strange. Like, why would you do that if you were moving through a scene? Make that a little more. That little jog to the right is a bit unrealistic as well. All right, so now if you're imagining your character walking through this scene, looking in different directions as they're walking, it's starting to get a little more realistic, right? In your actual final project, you're going to put objects in the scene, and you're going to render this motion using OpenGL. You're going to write code to make this happen. The only things from the only thing Blender is going to do for you is it's going to help you to save out this Bezier curve, so you have that information, the data points of where the control points are. You're going to save out the mesh and the light locations as well. I think I wrote a script for that, so that you can position lights in your scene and then save them out to a file, and then you'll be able to read the file with the lights, the file with this, and the file with the mesh, and then your other objects, which you're going to find yourself to position in the scene. I think we're done. I think this is more or less pretty much all you're going to need to know about Blender. There's a lot more stuff, like there are materials. So I'll just give you an example of that real quick, just for the heck of it, like as a bonus round here. Let's exit this and let's go back to wireframe mode. Okay, and then let's get a Suzanne head. Oops, first of all, I think we're editing something, right? Yeah, we're editing the Bezier curve. Let's add a Suzanne head. Where is she? Oh, mesh monkey. Okay. Let's make sure she's actually in the room. She's a bit big. Well, we can probably move her like maybe here. So you see her as you come through here. Okay. And then we're going to put a material on her, and you don't have to really get into this. These materials, you're going to learn how to do materials but you're not going to use Blender to do them. You're going to do them in OpenGL. But what we can do with Suzanne is give her a new material, and let's call it something like, should we make her glass? I don't know if I can do glass. I think I can do glass. So I would click on use nodes. Again, you don't really need to know this, but I'm going to show you this. There's a horizontal split thing here, and I can change this to the what is it? Node editor. Should be in here somewhere. I think it's this one, right? Texture node editor. So annoying. No, that's not it. Oh, it's just the shader editor, right? So this is a material saying what Suzanne is made of, basically. Can change her base color to something different, more of a bluish color. We can make her a little more metallic. Roughness, make her a little more reflective by turning down the roughness. And then maybe we'll give her some, where's the thing where you can even make her emit a little bit of light. She can kind of be a little bit like a glowing Suzanne. And I think you can make her transparent, but I'm trying to remember how to do that. But this might be good for now, just to show you what kind. Oh, alpha. Maybe that's it. No, just leave her not transparent. Not glass. So now that we've given her a material, let me just do this. I'll advance the camera manually through the scene this way. So we can be in a position where we would see her. Switch to camera view. Oh, you can't see her. Okay, now I'm only gonna see her ear. Well, let's put her on the other side. Let's put her on the other side of the room. Oops. Put her over here in that corner. Okay, now if I switch to rendered mode, I'm not getting what I want from this. I think that's because of the rendering type. Yeah, maybe if I go to cycles, it'll work. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. There's not much for her to reflect. Yeah, I mean, you can really dive in with all this rendering stuff. She doesn't really, she's reflective, but she doesn't have anything to reflect, so it's not really a good example. Let me try to mess with this. Let's make her not metallic then. How about that? We'll go back to Eevee, which is the simpler rendering engine. See if any of these. Oh, I think we need to also make her normal smooth. One of the things about normals is, well, we'll get into this in class, but if the normal for each vertex or face is sort of perpendicular to the face, you get this angular effect. But if you have the normals averaged between the normals of the vertices averaged between the normals of the faces, then you get a smoother thing. How do you do that again? Shade smooth. There. Okay, now Suzanne looks like this. Maybe I didn't apply the material to her or something. Oh, I know what the problem is. Wait, why isn't this working? This should be, she should be blue right now. She's not. I have to click use nodes. Is that why? Oh, that is why. Okay, she's emitting too much. Okay, there she is. Make her a little more metallic. Getting a little better here. Okay, now it's all making sense. If I go to cycles, you can see that this is like a more realistic renderer. It takes forever to render it, but you can see that like you get this much more smooth rendering here. It takes longer though. But that's her with a metallic blue look to her. Make her more smooth. You can see she's reflective. There we go. Now that's a real material. Okay, you can see this sort of reflection of the light and stuff. This is what I'm talking about with materials. We could even make her a little more smooth with a subsurface modifier. What is happening right now? What happened to the modifier tab? This is like a new version of Blender. So every time there's a new version of Blender, it's like, what is happening? Okay, subdivision surface. Essentially what this does is interpolates vertices to make the mesh more complicated. So that's a nicer looking Suzanne. Let's play our animation, see. looking through the doorway. There's Suzanne on the side as I go through. Okay, see, I promised I would show you some materials, and I did. So the clue here is these material properties, metallic, roughness, blah, blah, blah. You can learn how to do these sorts of things in code. And so this sort of node interface for doing the rendering in Blender isn't how you're going to do it. But if you want to like take a look at what a material might look like before you decide to implement it, you can try it out here in Blender. Okay, now I'm really done, and where I'm gonna stop recording, and then cheers. Okay.